All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with this presentation. Um, Today is the pre-application meeting for OEMR's Wildfire Resilience Innovation Program. My name is Jet Hawk. I'm a project coordinator here at the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. And joining me also is Megan Mattis, our financial specialist. Next slide, please. All right, just a couple disclaimers as we get going today. This webinar is being recorded. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this that will not be recorded. But please exit this meeting if you do not wish to be recorded. And these slides and the recording will be posted to our ERGP webpage following this meeting. Today's agenda, we're going to go through some critical reminders for the Wildfire Resiliency Investment Program. Go through an overview of the program, discuss cost information, application overview, and evaluation, and then discuss next steps and get into the Q&A session we have at the end. So just some critical reminders for any applicants that are joining us on the call. Applications are due to OEMR no later than midnight Mountain Daylight Time on October 10th, 2025. Please directly email all your applications to me. There are some specifics in the RFA about the submission details, so please check that out. Applications must be submitted in their entirety, or else your incomplete application will not be considered. And there are 3 application documents required for this program, those being the application form, the budget worksheet, and a project sitemap. Next slide, please. So getting into an overview of the program, I'm sure if there's any former participants on this call, you guys are very familiar with our Energy Resiliency Grant Program. The Wildfire Resilience Investment Program, or WRIP as we like to call it, is the latest iteration in Idaho's grid resilience funding programs. We began in October 2022 with our ERGP pilot program using state funds. And that was followed by ERGP Round 1 and Round 2 using federal funds and a mix of state and federal respectively. WRIP that was launched this month uses wholly state funds, and we'll also be using a competitive selection process to determine the projects. Our mission statement for WRIP is that it facilitates investments in Idaho's electric grid to monitor, mitigate, and mobilize against disruptive wildfire events. We have 3 goals for this program, you see on the slide, those being to invest in long-term strategic projects that mitigate wildfire risk in Idaho, support utilities with high wildfire risk exposure and capital limitations, and 3rd, rapidly deploy funding to Idaho's electric utilities. So getting into some eligibility information, the entities eligible to apply for this program are electric utilities that are not currently debarred or suspended with customers in Idaho. So for WRIP, OEMR is adopting the requirements of debarred and suspended entities as defined in 2 CFR Part 180. This has to do with the unique entity identifier in sam.gov, if you guys are familiar with that. Eligible projects for WRIP, it's a little bit broad, but we kind of grouped them into 5 main categories, those being grid design and system hardening, vegetation management and vegetation management equipment and technologies, wildfire condition monitoring technologies, operational response technologies / advanced grid technologies, and other projects that meet WRIP goals. Overall, what the goal for this program is just to invest in the electric utilities wildfire resilience and ensure that the investment will support and strengthen the utilities grid in the long term. There is one note we have with UAVs, also called drones, but unmanned aerial vehicles procured under WRIP must comply with the prohibition of certain telecommunications video surveillance services as defined in 2 CFR Section 200.216, 200.471, and Section 889 of Public Law 115-232. That basically says, please do not use these grant dollars to procure equipment or services that are owned or operated by or manufactured by the People's Republic of China and other entities of national security concern. There's some resources in the RFA about that, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions regarding that. And next slide, please. Ineligible projects for this program include projects currently under consideration, conditional award, or contract for ERGP round 1 or 2, projects that are not located within the state of Idaho, or that do not directly support WRIP goals, acquisition of real property, acquisition of covered telecommunications equipment, like I just mentioned, new generation sources, and cybersecurity. So getting into some of this award requirements, it is going to be a competitive award process. WRIP has an approximate total funding of $4 million with a maximum requested subaward amount of $650,000. Project locations have to be located within the state, and projects should be completed within 2 years of subaward agreement execution. The maximum number of applications per applicant is 2. And each of those applications can request the maximum subaward amount of $650,000. There is a cost match involved with this program, as our previous ERGP programs. For large utilities, or those that sell more than 4 million megawatt hours per year, you need to match at least 100% of the subaward amount. For small utilities, those are those that sell less than 4 million megawatt hours per year. You need to contribute at least 1/3 of the subaward amount. And the reimbursement mechanism for this program is activity completion payments. And by activities, we mean those distinct components within a project, and a single project may contain more than one activity. Getting into some applicable laws and regulations, as I mentioned earlier, the department in suspension, the prohibition on covered telecommunications and video surveillance services and equipment, as well as any applicable federal and state laws. If you've worked with us and applied for our previous ERGP programs, you will notice that the Davis-Bacon Act and Build America, Buy America Act and NEPA is not listed on this. And that's because this program uses only state dollars, so the federal requirements do not apply. So we are hoping that makes compliance a little bit easier for you as applicants. But regardless of the funding source for these projects, all requirements do apply. And there's additional details in the RFA in Appendix A, which I'd encourage you to look at. So getting into some details of how the program will work. Following the submission deadline on October 10th, OEMR will first do a completeness and eligibility review of all the applications. All complete and eligible applications will then be submitted to our independent review committee for evaluation. And those applications that score the highest by the review committee will be selected for conditional award, which will quickly then be followed by the subaward agreement execution. And once the subaward agreement is executed, we'll begin onboarding the subrecipients and begin projects. So there is no DOE approval required in this round, in this funding opportunity. So we hope to get this one moving a lot quicker. So getting into stuff about some cost information. As I mentioned, WRIP subawards are only state funds, and there is cost match required for small and large utilities. But this cost match also represents the minimum applicant required cost match. And when we start talking in this next slide about total project cost, keep in mind that's equal to the total subaward amount and the total applicant cost match. So just a couple examples here of how we're looking at this total project cost and calculating this. On the left, there's an example for large utilities. So the large utilities need to match 100% of the subaward amount. So in this case, in this example, the large utility requested $180,000 subaward. So they'll be required to match at least $180,000, bringing their total project cost to $360,000. But on the right-hand side, we see the small utility who only has to match at least 1/3. So with a equal requested subaward of $180,000, the small utility would only have to match $60,000, bringing their total project cost to $240,000. So in the RFA, though, we do discuss something called cost share, and cost share is differentiated from cost match. Cost share is just anything, any private funds provided above and beyond the minimum required cost match. So this is discussed more in the RFA in Section 8, but for calculations and like budget deviation, this cost share becomes important and it will be added to the cost match in those situations. But see this section in the RFA or reach out to me if you have any questions about this. So getting into an overview of the application, generally with the application documents, answer all of the questions, but if there is something in there that does not apply to your project or your company, please put NA or do not apply, just to make sure that we know that question was looked at and responded to appropriately. However, I'm going to reiterate this a few times throughout this presentation. Please do not leave any in the application, the evaluated parts of the application. Don't put NA or does not apply because you're just disadvantaging your application by leaving points on the table, and we want to ensure that all of your applications are given the full consideration possible. So I'm going to reiterate that a couple times throughout this. But finally, the application form does require a signature. Please don't forget that, or else that could be deemed incomplete. So required documents first is an application form. This is a PDF on our website. This will collect the applicant information, the project information, and all of the evaluated criteria and metrics. There's a budget worksheet, so we understand where your money, where the project money is being dedicated. And there's also a project site location map. This should be a PDF. This is something that the applicants will provide. And yeah, there's not a specific format for that, just as long as it demonstrates where the project is, where the improvements are to be made, and a legend that explains any details that we should be aware of. So getting into the application form, there are 5 sections here, including applicant information and eligibility. That's pretty straightforward. The second is project eligibility and description, followed by a description of the project, the evaluated criteria, and then project build and resilience metrics at the end. So this is the first part of the application form. When it comes to the project cost, as I mentioned earlier, the total project cost is the sum of the subaward and cost match and any cost share if applicable. The requested subaward amount is what you are requesting from OEMR for this project. The cost match is the amount that you will contribute. This is like the minimum required amount. And then any cost share, that's what you provide above and beyond the cost match. You'll put that in the last box at the bottom and go ahead and put zeros through that if you do not intend on contributing. Getting into the evaluated sections, you're going to see kind of in the middle of the document some colored boxes with some topics and some prompts below that. The topic at the beginning is the question's overall theme, or what we're hoping to capture in the response. And below that, you'll see between 1 and 3 prompts pertaining to that question. The applicant responses should clearly answer these prompts and fill in any detail or other context that will help support the answer. We used to have a legal counsel that worked for this office, and she would always tell me when I'd like submit a paper to always do more with less. So like the one piece of advice I can give for any applicants like on this call right now is more words is not necessarily better for applications. The more concise and clearly that the prompts in these things can be answered is really something that the review committee looks for and really values. So any details that'll help like support and strengthen your responses are definitely encouraged, but just be aware that a verbose answer is not necessarily going to be a high scoring answer. So I'd encourage everyone, any applicants on the call, to really think about what the question is asking and how that, how your projects and how your response can best meet that. The last part of the application form here is selected metrics. So just go through the table and just see what metrics you will track in the project from project completion to the 1 year report. And these metrics will also be reported in the quarterly and annual reports. Moving on to the budget worksheet. The slide's a little bit busy, but I hope this will help a little bit. There are two main sections to the budget worksheet. You got section A at the top, which is just the budget summary, and section B is the budget categories. So section A discusses where the cost match and the subaward is being dedicated per activity. And section B discusses where the money is going across the budget categories. So first, starting at the top left, the activities are going to be filled in column A. Those are the distinct elements of your project. For example, if your project is AI satellite analysis followed by vegetation management, those could be two separate activities, and you'd list them in rows 1 and 2. In column B there, this is how you're going to dedicate the subaward to each activity, followed by where you dedicate your cost share per activity in column C. Anywhere you see totals in here, the tables will automatically sum those, so don't worry about that. And then moving into section B, budget categories, the activities there at the top will automatically self-populate. But per activity, you're going to break down how the subaward plus the cost match will be applied across the different budget categories. And then lastly, make sure that all the totals that are there in section B match up with the totals in section A. If there are any, as you complete this thing, if there are any questions or something is not working with the budget sheet, feel free to reach out to me and we'll get that fixed. So common application errors, missing signatures on the last page of the application form. Please double check that. Please make sure you're not missing any answers to the evaluation questions in the application form. Remember, please do not leave points on the table. I want each of your applications to be evaluated to the best that they can. Make sure any dates in the forms are not missing. Just double check your cost calculations and use the first sheet of the application form, the checklist there. Just make sure no documents are missing because that's a easy way to get your application disqualified, and we don't want that. So, all right, getting into some things about how these applications will be evaluated. First and foremost, after we receive the applications, OEMR will do a completeness and eligibility evaluation just to make sure that the applicant is eligible for this program and that the applications compiled are complete and ready to be evaluated. After all those are good, they will set the technical evaluation by our independent review committee. And for WRIP, there are 3 main sections, including wildfire resilience impact, customer benefits, and applicant need. Wildfire resilience is the biggest section at 50 points, followed by 35 for customer benefits and applicant need at 15 points. So getting into the first one with wildfire resilience impact, there are 3 topics underneath this one. Topic 1 is wildfire risk. We are looking for responses that describe utilities' high wildfire risk exposure. And this is pretty broad, and it can include topics such as projected wildfire risk, historical wildfires in the area, any vulnerabilities or interdependencies unique to your system that make wildfire a unique and distinct threat, historical outages or infrastructure damage caused by wildfire, and any infrastructure age or lifespan that would be especially susceptible to wildfire. With this one, we're just looking to help us paint the picture of why wildfire is a problem to your system. And that dovetails right there into section 2. So then after you lay the groundwork for the risk, describe how this project is going to directly meet that risk and strengthen long-term wildfire resilience, monitoring, and response capabilities. If you have it, Please also describe how the project aligns with your wildfire mitigation plan or internal policies and strategies. And then because we're trying to roll this out quickly, we're going, topic 3 discusses project management. So just lay out the groundwork of how a plan of how this project is going to be implemented. Definitely incorporate the different stages of a project that can include planning, permitting, procurement, construction, commissioning, anything unique to your project. If there's any specialty personnel or contractors that need to be involved, please discuss that as well. And on the second prompt here, please use a T+ format to discuss this timeline. And this T+ format, I have an example here on the right, but T = 0 is going to be your subaward agreement execution. And then from the date of from the subaward execution, just basically lay out how long it's going to be for each step of the progress. So in this example, after subaward agreement execution, equipment procurement is going to be a month after that. And then contractor procurement will be a month after the equipment. Once we get the contractor on board, construction should be complete within 12 months. And then once that's complete, we should get the completion report submitted a month after that. So if you have any questions, please let me know about that. But finally, with project management, we're asking that you disclose any permits or land permissions that must be obtained for the project, and especially any known federal environmental analyses that may be required for the project. And especially if it's going to impact the timeline, please let us know about that. Section number 2 is customer benefits at 35 points. The first topic in this one is value maximization. Just give us a narrative on how leveraging these grant funds and the cost match and cost share, if you're going to provide it, maximize the overall value and impact of the project. We're just looking for how these dollars coming together is going to maximize the effectiveness and the benefits that it's going to bring to the customers, which goes into topic 2. Overall, describe how the project is going to benefit the customers in your area, especially the more details we can get, like number and type of customers benefited, overall outages, labor impacts, jobs, additional economic opportunities, etc. Any information under that would help, would really strengthen this point. And topic 3, reliability metrics. Please provide some metrics that you're going to track to show, quantify how this project will improve the system. And something that we really like to see in this last round is target metrics. So if you can describe where your metric is right now and where you hope this metric to be down the road after the project, and how this project will get the metric over there, that'd be really helpful and awesome for us to see. All right, and finally, in technical evaluation, the last section is applicant need. So topic 1 here is financial need. So please just take a second to describe the financial need of the applicant and the cost of no action alternative actions to you and the customers. And finally, this last 5 points is for those applicants who have not received a pilot program round 1 or round 2 award yet. So that brings us now to next steps. So there is an active Q&A going on right now. So please send any application related questions to comments at oemr.idaho.gov by October 3rd. Any questions received after that, I will not answer. So I'll post on any responses to that to the final FAQ by October 8th. If you have technical non-application related questions or any issues, you can reach out directly to me. That's like, hey, the application form is not downloading. There's something broken with the budget sheet. Feel free to reach out to me directly for that. Applications are due on October 10th by midnight. Please make sure your applications are submitted in full. It'd be great if the application files could be submitted individually. Please don't combine them into one, because that just makes it more difficult to evaluate. Like I mentioned, this webinar and the slides will be posted on our webpage, and review the Q&A that's on the webpage as well. Just reiterating the timeline again, after the award, the application due date on October 10th, we'll begin evaluations, and we hope to have those conditional awardees selected by November 14th. Sorry, my display just blacked out. November 14th, there we go. All right, well, thank you everyone for listening to this presentation. This is the end of the recorded section, and we will get into the Q&A.